another Amigos Play. This is Amigo Aaron, and tonight we're going to take a very special look at the Origin 1992 classic, Wing Commander. Wing Commander was a tremendous game from the early 90s that had long-reaching influences that are probably still felt today to a certain degree. This will be me playing on the STOCK Amiga 600, the House Amiga. Again, special thanks to Gary Hucker for providing me this fine Amiga. And we're going to play this thing basically naked. We're going to play it with the standard hardware and a GoTech drive. We're going to be playing this off the floppies and with the exact same loading speed that you would have experienced if you'd played this back in the day. For better or for worse, I thought it would be an interesting look to see how this game runs on a proper Amiga, and was it playable? That's the big word. If you look through the comments on Lemon Amiga, which is a fine site, and other places, you'll here we go. So prepare to experience the joy of floppy. But if you read the Lemon comments and other places, you'll see many people describe this game as effectively unplayable on a stock Amiga with a 68,000 proc. That's what we've got here. No special accelerators of any kind. In fact, not only am I playing this on the stock Amiga 600, I'm also playing with just 1 meg memory. So it doesn't get any lower or slower than this right here. So let's talk about Wing Commander while we're loading here. Again, this was a brilliant game. The game was first released for DOS September 26, 1990. And here we go. Well, let's check out this opening here. You can see right out of the gate that it is a low frame rate. The ships are loafing along. I mean, they look pretty good. And here comes that iconic logo. The music for this game really reminds me of ad-lib music from back in the old PC days. Don't get me wrong, there are some tremendous songs on here, but it's got an ad-libby quality to it that I just can't get past. The musician on this, by the way, Mark Allen Knight, and I think he did a good job. He did a few other games for the Amiga, including Guy Spy, which is a pretty interesting game I hope to cover at some point. And he did SimCity 2000's music, which is got some nice tunes. But I would say this is probably his biggest game that he provided music for. So we're going to start the Vega campaign. The secret missions, I believe, were a PC add-on that were included with this release on the Amiga. So, Wing Commander, designed by Chris Roberts. You may know Chris Roberts from some of his other games. I remember him mostly from Space Rogue, which was a really neat game that came out. It was sort of the predecessor to this. He also did Freelancer, which was a fun game, and a few others. They mostly known for his Wing Commander series. He also has pitched a game called Star Citizen, which I'm not sure it's ever going to get released, but it's been talked about. I like this opening as it has you. It sort of has a you've got you in the video game here, and I remember the first time I loaded this up, I had no idea what the hell was going on, and you instantly die. So an ominous start, but of course this is actually quite a clever ploy to get you to put in your call sign and your name. and it's very cunningly done. And this game is available to play during the actual adventure, and which is cool. You can just go in there and play wave after wave. So this is one of the early video games that has another video game playable in it, which is neat, sort of like a Shenmue type thing. Or if you recall, when you were loading games up on the original PlayStation, you could play Galaxian. I think it was Ridge Racer. They'll let you play Galaxian. We always thought that was a hoot. And this is the full the full set-down environmental cab. It's funny that basically a spacefaring fighter ship for relaxation would have a simulation of the actual fighters they have in the in the game. So I guess it's a simulator or a video game, who could tell. So one thing I liked about Wing Commander was the fact that you had these different characters in it. It really made the game unique, and it made it deeper. It gave you the feeling that you were amongst friends or comrades, or sometimes people that were jerks, depending on who you're talking to. So I'm going to flip through these and click on all these guys. It always amuses me. I always like a game that starts, in a kind of a different way, a fun way. This makes you feel like that you're, a new member of the crew. You know right away who you are, what you're all about. This game shipped with a quite amazing, magazine-style booklet that told you all about the different pilots and whatnot. It was quite neat. And you'll meet, a variety of different pilots as you go through this, which I always thought was neat. And depending on how you fare, you may or may not see some of these fellows again, which I always thought was cool. Oh, there's Angel. Always liked her. So, this game ran forever. They made many, many of these games over the years, and I believe the last one they made, now this, I could be wrong, I think the last one they made was Wing Commander 4 in 96, but they may actually, there could be more. I like this. It gives you the rundown there. Some of this game reminds me of Wings. It's sort of similar in some ways. It's a more advanced version, but in Wings you have a board, kill board. You also have comrades that get killed, and you also have missions, various missions to fly. You're the new guy there. Then you slowly rise up the ranks. So they have a lot in common. I love this. This is your barracks area, and what you do, let me save this here. And when you save your game here, it will that bed will be filled. There he is. And so you can load your game. Then you've got a game there. You've got a guy in the bed. So we're going to go ahead and try to get a mission on. I think I'm just going to fly one mission because I have a feeling it's going to take me a good while just to play this one mission due to the fact that this thing's going to run so slow. Now, if you've played the PC version of this up to this point, you'll notice that the graphics on this clearly are more washed out and moving slower. It's definitely the same graphics. They've just, dithered them or whatever it took to drop them down to, say, 16 color. So you've got what you've got here is sort of a, I don't know if you're an old PC guy, maybe sort of a Tandy level graphics, better than EGA, but just barely. This game really taxed a stock Amiga. To play it, you had to have 1 meg chip memory, bare minimum. I always thought that was a cool animation. They've added little touches like that, flourishes to this. Of course, this is where they're just going over the mission briefing, and it's always like the fact that there's dialogue in these mission briefings. In between the pilots, they'll ask questions. There's sort of you will have your sort of inner monologue occasionally, which is cool. But But anyway, this game was a real stretch on the Amiga. It was going into a realm of gaming that was not the Amiga's strong suit, which was 3D and 3D rendering of graphics and whatnot. And the Amiga admittedly struggled with the stock 68,000. By this point, you'll have to remember that here we go, red alert, time to run. I thought this was cool too. I'll tell you, those guys look like they're running in slow motion compared to the A1200 version. But this was probably the most ambitious game released on the 68,000. And I'd say this is probably the last time they tried this. I mean, really, it's saying this is playable on a 68,000 is sort of unfair. Again, like I said, I was at this point the Amiga had been out for 7 years, and that 7 megahertz processor was getting along in the tooth. If you had a 6820 or up, you were okay. And if you had a CD-TV, you were fine as well. The CD-TV version, this is quite nice, very attractive. It has 256 color graphics, and the speed is there, and everything comes together quite nicely. But the stock 600 version or 500 version, as you'll see here as we pull out of the base, it is slideshow city. Now let's take a look at this cockpit here. You've got all your HUD, you've got your radar, you've got your waypoint on there, you've got your console to your right, your weaponry to the left, your speeds up on the upper left and right there, and of course you got your targeting reticle right there in the middle. When this came out, my biggest pet peeve about it was the fact that so much of the screen was taken up by the cockpit, which was I don't know, I like to have a nice wide view of what's going on, so it bugged me. Now and it's pretty much like this in every version. I've not played the 3DO version, which I've heard was enhanced, but I'm wagering it was still pretty similar. I like the fact that the control stick with the hand on it that you see in front of you, it moves with your stick, which is kind of neat. This game takes advantage of the Amiga's keyboard. There are various keyboard commands, including the ability to talk to your wingman and assign them tasks, which I always thought was really slick. That was something that you saw in a lot of flight simulators and stuff where you had a wingman, but it was a game like this, it kind of surprised me. So this first mission is a real snoozer. You have to drive or fly your fighter to the 3 waypoints, and about halfway through the first waypoint, you will get jumped by some Kilrathi. Kilrathi are the bad guys in this. They're a alien cat-like race. I think probably, and this is a selfish choice, it's not an Amiga game, but Wing Commander 3, I think, is where this series came into its own. I believe that's the one that had the full motion graphics. It came on like 300 discs. And they had a star-studded cast. They had Mark Hamill. And they had John Rhys Davies. They had Ginger Lynn as your mechanic. They had a slew of tremendous actors in the roles. And the special effects were good, and the Kilrathi were, I don't know, by today's, here we go. By today's standards, they may look sort of comically done, but when I first saw the game, I was like, holy moly, this is a real neat game. It looks awesome, and I liked all the special effects and stuff. And of course, when you've got Mark Hamill in there, he brought a lot of star power to the role. Again, with the other stars, they spent a fortune on it. In fact, this game is sort of credited for being the very game that started the all-out software push towards big-budget titles. This game cost a fortune to make, and it had a big team, and they set a bar very high, and that others had to match. And they did. But I mean, the small guy fell by the wayside. This is where big teams and big money took over, and so you could look at it with a tear in your eye. The little man pretty much lost out when the Wing Commander series and the games like it came into town. So you can see as I shoot the guns here that it's literally the frame rate is just god awful. Here comes the Kilrathi ship. He's not my target. I might be able to clip him a little. Now the ship still looked pretty solid. Again, when this game came out, this was sort of an unusual area of space combat. There hadn't been a ton of stuff that addressed space combat in this way. I came off the back of playing stuff like Star Control and Star Control 2, where it was more of a, top-down, old-school shooter. When you get stuff like this, and this sort of spawned your games like your X-Wings, for example, and your TIE Fighters, that followed suit. Now, they did not pick up on the emotional, storyline, but they did pick up on the simulation part and expanded on it in a lot of ways. And those are both tremendous games. I was a big fan of X-Wing, and always hoped it would come to the Amiga. Of course, at the time, I didn't realize that was pretty much a near impossibility to pull off, but I'd always hoped it would show up. But you can see by the rendering of the Kilrathi, of course, this is a lower res and the low colors. They still look pretty good, and they float into view. They're still sort of hard to hit, despite the fact that they're going so slow. The slowness of the space combat, it can't be overstated. It is just, there it goes, eat liquid doom. But you cannot, it would make me insane to play it like this for any length of time. And I'm a pretty patient fellow, and I actually like stuff a little bit slower, but this is a little too slow even for me. So we're gonna try to help out here and see if we can pick up a couple more of these things before we call it quits. So, Wing Commander got released on a lot of stuff, and I don't know if the Amiga was the weakest hardware-wise, but I'd say it was probably close. I mean, you didn't see this thing getting pushed out on on an Amstrad, for example. I mean, if you had to have a certain kind of hardware. So this thing got released on, of course, the infamous Super Nintendo version, which is a mixed bag. It also, of course, had the original DOS. This had a Sega CD release, which I've not played, and I'd wonder how it ran compared to this. The Sega CD provided some enhancements to the Genesis / Mega Drive that could have provided this a smoother experience, because really the Genesis is not a whole lot more powerful than the Amiga, if at all. They're very similar. So I'll be interested to see how that plays. Again, they also supported the Tandy graphics. I used to have a Tandy, and I don't recall playing this on it. So either I just didn't have it, or I didn't think it would work well enough to play. Here's the funny one. There's always these games always support a goofy system, and the goofy system in this case is the FM Towns Marty, which is highly touted as the first CD-based console, only released in Japan just ahead of the CD32 that Amiga released from Commodore. The FM Towns Marty, I've never seen one in person. I've always wanted to, but just I don't know anyone that's got one. So this game was unusual for a couple reasons. One, you could install on your hard drive, which is would help. Of course, to do that, you had to have more memory, so that was the downside. This Amiga 600 has a compact flash card installed, but I can't run it because of the lack of memory, and so I just had to play it old school, right off the old discs, and that's just the way it is. I read something very unusual when I was doing some research for this. The conversion on the Amiga was rolling along, and it was being done by a fellow named Nick Pelling. And Pelling, in the midst of developing the game and converting it over, had a near fatal brain disease set upon him, and he was out for a while, and it took a long time to get him back. And I will say, it's at Mindscape, who were overseeing the conversion. They let him take the time to recover. They didn't move his code onto another programmer, and eventually he came back and finished the code up, which I thought that was interesting. And so and this was probably not the easiest thing to convert, given the specifications of the Amiga and what you were trying to get it to do. So no simple task indeed. When this game came out, and you can see we've got plenty of time to chat here because it's a long drive to the waypoint. So I had a feeling that we would have plenty of time to talk about the background of this game. So this game did pretty well in as far as reviews, but the reviews sort of echoed what I've been talking about, which is that unless you have a hot rod machine, the game was effectively unplayable. It's not rocket science, no pun intended. And the fact that the PC had a version of this that was so good that it made the Amiga version look like a real bummer. And so some places docked at points just for the fact that they even tried to pull this off on the Amiga. And so you had reviews ranging anywhere from 92 in CU Amiga Mag of 97 all the way down to 48 in Amiga Power. You'll notice that if you do a lot of these, here we go into the asteroid belt. You'll notice that you've done a lot of these games and the reviews of the games. As the magazines get older, when they re-review these games, they almost always murder them, and this game was no exception. The game steadily fell in most of the magazines, although really Amiga Power initially gave it a 55 and just moved it down to a 48, so they didn't like to begin with. Again, they just thought it was too ambitious. I don't think the reviews of this game really reflect the meat of the game or the game itself. I think when they released this, they had to assume that people would upgrade their machines eventually, and this game would get more play down the line. And they were right to a certain degree. Some of it's just taken 30 years to get back there. But now a lot of us have the ability to play this. Plus, emulation allows you to play the Amiga version of this in a quick way. Where the hell am I? The truth of the matter is, if you really want to play this game, there are much better versions. As much as I hate to admit it, the PC version blows this one away. And this was the beginning of the end for the Amiga, in my mind, back in the day. When you looked over, and that crummy BP PC that you laughed at a few years before, I'm just going to hit turbos here and just try to either get through this or ram something. It's overdrive time. Whoops, sorry. Sorry about that. Whoops, you didn't like that. But when you saw the cracks in the armor of the Amiga, it's when games like this started coming out in the PC, where they just looked great, and the sound was there, which it hadn't been there before, and the graphics were there, and they hadn't been there before, and it ran better, Then you've got problems, and I remember games like this, and X-Wing and TIE Fighter. And even games like One Must Fall, 29-7, or even stuff well before Doom. I was just like, boy, these look pretty good, and these aren't coming, And when that dawns on you, it's time. It's unless they get a new Amiga out, you're boned, and boned we were. So it was a real bummer. So I played this game with sort of mixed feelings. Oh, that's not good. Well, that's the end of me. I will say, oh, I love this. There goes the console, and there goes me in a photo negative death. It looks like my head's been blown plumb off in that picture. And then here's the Amiga, poor Amiga trying to render this scene, which runs so nice and smooth, even on the CD32 and 1200. The advanced Amiga systems, again, they run this thing at a very playable clip. If you've got an 020 and some memory, you're in good shape. And anything above that, you're fine. You'll be fine. Again, the PC version is probably still better, but sometimes you just want to play your Amiga. And it's also the good thing about the Amiga, you just stick in the discs and go. It's not like the PC where you've got to set up memory managers and stuff. Which reminds me, I read a funny quip about this game when I was looking through, doing the research. When they were getting there to release this game, they kept getting an EMM memory error when the game ended, and they couldn't figure out what to do about it. And so finally, one of the programmers said, well, I got an idea, and he went through and changed it. He just changed the text to say, thank you for playing Wing Commander, which I thought was great. They didn't end up releasing it with that, but it was still pretty clever. So this is one of the great scenes in video games when you die. I mean, they do a great job with these funerals in the game and make you feel like feel a loss. You know, when you lose wingmen in the game, they're just gone. And so often they won't be there, and people will lament how they love them, and now that they're dead, it's a sad thing. You know, it gives the game a lot of power. The game has a storyline that branches depending on who lives and dies and how well you do at the missions. And so, one of the first games that really tried to pull that off as well. So I always thought that was very ambitious to go in that direction. And they didn't have to. They could have just put together a space game. They had enough here to just do a basic space shooter. But they wanted something that was more cinema-like. This is sort of Cinemaware-esque in a lot of ways. If Origin hadn't done it, I could have seen this could have been a Cinemaware title, and it wouldn't have surprised me. So there goes poor Hosier's body cast into the deepest space. Hopefully they shot me at the Genesis planet, so I can have another go like Spock. I've always thought this was really actually quite a beautiful scene right here when you get shot into space like this. And you have all those guys out there in their spacesuits saluting you in the 21 gun salute. Just awesome, an awesome end to a great game. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm down on this game just because the Amiga version on the stock Amiga is slow. It's actually a great game. Hope everyone will go out and give it a shot, and hope you enjoyed this look. Until next time, adios.